Jaya Gopi Jamavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jamavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Anjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Anjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajapacharya Ashtapaya Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajapacharya Ashtapaya Shata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Vimseka Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the Summa devotees. All glories to the Summa devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yasya Niraditenanga Nisturena Gavam Nirnam Patyanti Akalato Garbaha Sarvanti Shravanti Sma Bhayena Vai Nirvishanti Gana Yasya Kakudi. Thank you. Achala Shankaya Tam Tikshna Shringam Udvikshya Gopyo Gopash Cha Tatrasu Yasya Nirvraditenanga Nisturena Gavanyanam Patantya Kalato Garbha Shravanti Sma Bhayena Vai Nirvishanti Ganayasya. Should you? Yasya Niraditenanga Nishturena Gavanyarnam Patantya Kalato Garva Shravanti Sma Bhayena Vai Yasya Nirvraditenanga Nisturena Gavanyarnam Patantya Kalato Garba Shravanti Sma Bhayena Vai. And text 4. Nirvishanti Ganayasya Kakudya Chala Shankaya. Kakudya Chala Shankaya Tam Tikshna Shringam Udviksha Gopyo Gopashchatrashu. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize we were just doing the text 3. Yasya, whose, Nirhaditena, by the reverberating sound, Anga, my dear King Parikshit, Nishtarena, rough, Gavam, of cows, Nirnam, of humans, Patanti, fall, Akalataha, untimely, Garbaha, the embryos, Shravanti, Sma, are miscarried, Vayena, out of fear, Vai, indeed, Nirvishanti, enter, Ganaha, clouds, Yasya, whose, Kakudi, unto the hump, Achala, as a mountain, Shankaya, by the mistaken identification, tam, him, tikshna, sharp, shringam, whose horns, udviksha, seeing, gopya, the cowherd women, gopa, the cowherd men, cha, and tatrasu, become frightened. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear King, clouds hovered about sharp-horned Aristasura's hump, mistaking it for a mountain. And when the cowherd men and ladies caught sight of the demon, they were struck with terror. Indeed, the strident reverberation of his roar so frightened the pregnant cows and women that they lost their fetuses in miscarriages. Purport. The Vedic literature categorizes miscarriages as follows. Achurtad bhavet shravaha pata panchama shastayo ata urdvam prasuti syat. Up to the 4th month, a premature delivery is called shrava. In the 5th and 6th months, it is called hata. And after this, it is considered a birth, prasuti. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Bhaganatan Pitam Tam Sajivam Panchika Patrubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, my dear King, clouds hovered about sharp-horned Aristasura's hump, mistaking it for a mountain. And when the cowherd men and ladies caught sight of the demon, they were struck with terror. Indeed, the strident reverberation of his roar so frightened the pregnant cows and women that they lost their fetuses in miscarriages. So here we are hearing about when the great big demon sent by King Kamsa, Aristasura, is entering Vrindavan. And these demons, they're envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they're trying to take his position. Krishna, he's the strongest of the strong. So Aristasura here, trying to take that place as the most powerful or strongest of the strong. We also see in our lives and in the modern day, people are also not like these big demons like Aristasura, but like tiny little demons. So I can see in my own life, and sometimes if I'm fortunate to get the intelligence by Lord Krishna, to see when I'm trying to be the Lord of all I survey. And similarly, this is the tendency of a conditioned soul, to try to lord it over the material nature. So here we see an even bigger example of one of these demons trying to lord over material nature. Aristasura, he's coming into the most wonderful place there is, Vrindavan, and causing such terror that the cows are having miscarriages, the women are having miscarriages, and he's no match for Krishna. So even though Aristasura is very fearful, the people in Vrindavan truly have nothing to fear, because this is actually why Krishna comes to the world. When he explains Pritranaya sadhunam vinashayatra duskritam, he's coming for the pleasure of the sadhunam, the devotees, the sadhus, the saintly persons, for them and their pleasure, and not for like any kind of selfish pleasure, but they're going to receive the most pleasure and happiness, not by doing something for themselves, but because they want to serve Krishna. So he comes to this world so they can personally, his devotees can have his personal service. They can render service to him personally and intimately. And he also comes to destroy the Duskritina, the demons. So all of these rascal demons that we get to hear about in his pastimes, Krishna very easily destroys them like it's nothing. We read about Putana. Putana first came to Vrindavan, was one of the first demons sent there by King Kamsa. And Krishna is just a tiny little baby, barely able to, when people are that age, they can't walk around much, they can't talk or any of these things. They're just breastfeeding and totally dependent on their parents. But Krishna, he's always supremely powerful. Like Srila Prabhupada explains that God never has to become God. Even from the time he's a little baby, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's never this idea that the Mayavadis say where, just give me $60, I'll teach you a mantra, and after 3 months of this mantra, you'll become God. No, actually, Krishna, he never becomes God. He's always God. He's always the Supreme. He's always in control, and we are always eternally a servant of him. So he, even as a tiny little baby, he's very easily killing these demons, and they're no match for him. When he was just a little baby, not even walking around much, just the age to roll over, the cart demon appeared, a big ghostly demon who had taken over a cart to smash Krishna. And just as a tiny little baby with tender little lotus feet, Krishna just gave the cart a little kick, and it totally exploded, pieces here and there everywhere, and like this, that demon died. And so here we'll soon see how Krishna saves all the residents of Vrindavan and easily takes care of Aristasura. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, the humble disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, are explaining the different stages of, Vedic literature characterizes miscarriages as follows, and then it gives the different months of the development and the different names for them. So in Vedic culture, we see this is a terrible thing. There's a large demon scaring everyone, and they're frightened, and out of their terror, to describe their terror, we're hearing about how they had these miscarriages. But in modern culture, which we can see how fallen modern culture is compared to Vedic culture, because in modern culture this is seen as not even, that's like everyday life. So, because instead of having this is like everyday life, having people going and having, on purpose, getting the fetuses or the child aborted, because in Vedic culture, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in the center. So everything everyone is doing is simply for the pleasure of the Lord and for their own spiritual enlightenment, because they understand that they're not the body, but they're the soul. Like Krishna explains as the very ABCs in his conversation with Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He's explaining that as the embodied spirit soul passes from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly, the soul passes into another body at death, and the self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So this is at the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. It's the ABCs of Vedic culture and Vedic knowledge. So everything is based around what is best for the soul in Vedic culture. And we can see the contrast with our modern culture, because everything is based around what is best for my personal sense gratification. SG, that's the supreme goal in modern culture, sense gratification, but which is all based around the body. But in Vedic culture, Krishna was in the center, so everything was much better. So that's why this kind of movement, we're using very simple, easy methods that Sri Sri Gauranitai just 500 years ago brought about in the world, and that Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, gave us not too long ago. Very easy, simple, and relishable methods to where we can put Krishna in the middle of everything that we do, and in this way, eventually in the middle of all society. So that way, all these terrible things that go on in modern society that nobody likes, there's so many bad things, all of these things can easily be solved by taking up this process of Krishna consciousness. Because when Krishna is in the center, then we'll be fully happy and fully satisfied. Because it's explained that we're all eternally a part and parcel of Krishna. And so when we're trying to get happiness by serving something, whether I'm serving a friend or a family member or a dog or my own stomach, that service is eventually going to get old because it's material. Something material is going to make us more tired. We're going to get, we're not going to like it eventually. But something spiritual, actually, we become more and more energized and more enlivened. So when we put Krishna in the center, everything around us becomes spiritualized. If we're calling a devotee to associate with the devotees, not only are we becoming spiritualized and enlivened, and also that devotee, but also the people who are just working to make the phone lines work, the person pushing the buttons in the Verizon center, the phone lines that are connecting everything, just the sound vibration that we're making from speaking with that devotee, which is traveling around the world, like the cell phone, like this, everything that's involved in the devotional service becomes purified. When we're buying produce and boga to offer to their lordships, Sri Gauranitai, everything involved in that boga being prepared nicely and then being offered to the Lord is becoming purified. So whoever the farmer was that was farming these different types of produce, the jiva soul that might have been taking birth as that carrot, the land that it was farmed on, and the people driving it to the temple, all of these things are becoming purified just because, just from taking up the simple process of Krishna consciousness, offering food to the Lord. And I was on the point of spiritual things making us more enlivened and material things making us more tired. I just heard Srila Prabhupada in a lecture yesterday. He was saying, see, like me, I'm an old man, but I'm traveling all around the country, and I still have so much energy. He's explaining in this type of way. And he also said, and I'm getting no salary. So we can see devotion, just how relishable Krishna consciousness is, that no matter whatever the external conditions may be, we become so enlivened just to perform any amount of devotional service. Whereas material activities, we see people get more and more tired and more dissatisfied. If we went to any kind of job, we could go to maybe the bank or something, any kind of establishment, and see someone who's been working there for so long, and for the most part, anyone that we see, they're going to look so tired and miserable. But if we see a devotee who's just been doing whatever his service is for many, many, many years, even the same service, he's blissful, he's relishing it, and he has so much to share when we speak to that devotee. It's like, might be the most amazing part of our whole month, just getting, if we meet some new devotee and just speak to them about their service for a brief moment, it becomes so enlivening. But if we speak to someone performing material activities, it's usually the opposite. So we can see that just by putting Krishna in the center and performing any amount of devotional service, then we can actually become truly happy and become truly enlivened. It's not that we have to go somewhere else to try and get that happiness or try and serve something else. Because actually Krishna, he's the supreme proprietor, the supreme friend, and the supreme controller of everything. So there's no one else and nothing else to take shelter of. anything else that we try to take shelter of will be eventually either taken away from us, or if we accumulate everything, we got big house, big car, big dog, big land, all these things, big bank balance, eventually we'll be taken away from that once we have to leave our body, either today, tomorrow, or in some time. But if we take shelter of Krishna, he's always with us, whether we have to be in the body of a pig or a demigod or wherever. Krishna is always with us as the Paramatma, the super soul in the heart. And he's the friend of all living entities, so it's not that we take shelter of someone else if we're in fear of some other living entities like Aristasura or some other big demons. Krishna is in the heart of everyone, so we take shelter of him, and in that way we'll be fully protected. He explains in the Bhagavad Gita that he's directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated on these bodies like a machine. So if somebody is the supreme controller or the head of anything, then naturally we wouldn't have to worry about the people under them if we're taking shelter of them. So Krishna is the head of everything. So if we take shelter of him, we don't have to worry about anything so that is subservient to him. And this is what he's also explaining in the end of the Bhagavad Gita, to abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto him. So there's no other process or other austerity or other form of worship or whatever it is. There's no other process than just, as he says, abandoning everything, all other so-called dharmas, and surrendering unto Krishna. And we don't whimsically make up how to surrender to Krishna. We surrender unto Krishna based on what is in the scriptures. And we can confirm all these different services based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So it's not that, okay, I make up my own whatever sort of service, but actually whatever service my Guru gives me, that's the service that I'll do. The different principles that are prescribed in the scriptures, those are the principles that I'll follow. And anything that maybe with the little details, I can run them by the sadhus, the saintly persons and devotees that we get the great fortune of associating with. So in Vedic culture, there's never anything that's done just whimsically, just I'm going to do whatever because I feel whatever. That's actually the way of these demons, like Aristasura. But we can see the devotees are much happier. So if we follow in the footsteps of the great devotees, then we can become truly happy. And we follow in their footsteps by remembering the instructions of the spiritual master and what's in the scriptures. When do we usually give class till? 8:25. Okay. 8:30 is the cutoff time? Okay, thank you. Can we read a couple more verses? Just one? Okay. Okay, thank you. So, leading up to Krishna's very relishable pastimes, we hear about all of his different devotees and everything that we need to know, actually, before jumping into Krishna's pastimes. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it starts off with explaining things like Krishna's universal form, because even if we have material conditioning and a material concept of life, then by understanding Krishna in ways such as his universal form, we can see him in every single thing throughout the entire cosmic manifestation. Whether that's the mountains are explained as his stacks of bones, so like the bones. The clouds were explained to be like his hair on his head, and then the trees were like the hairs on his body. And all these things we can see, we can become Krishna conscious even in our day-to-day life, understanding these things like his universal form. And then when we get to the 10th canto, we actually hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what Krishna does in his eternal form as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan with his eternal associates. And just by hearing about Krishna, we become purified. Just by speaking about Krishna, we become purified. All these things, the processes that are given are chanting, hearing, remembering. Anything related to Krishna will actually purify us, because it's our natural position to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, since He's the Supreme Proprietor, the Supreme Controller, and the Supreme Friend. So we're actually in our natural position when we're glorifying Him and serving Him in some way. Just like as the hand is a part and parcel of the body, since we're part and parcels of Krishna, if the hand were to try and enjoy food on its own, if you make a nice cake and the hand's going to try and eat it, eventually it's going to shrivel up. Nothing nice is going to happen for the hand or the rest of the body. But if the hand supplies the food to the stomach, then naturally all the parts of the body are satisfied. All the nutrients also, they're going to the hand, because it's a part and parcel of the body. So since we're part and parcels of Krishna, if we naturally give everything we have to Him with our body, mind, thoughts, and words, then naturally we'll be fully satisfied, and everything else will be taken care of as well. Just like when you water the root of the tree, that the whole tree is nourished, all the twigs, branches, and leaves. If we water just one leaf, it'll dry up. But we water the root, and naturally everything is taken care of. So like that, we give everything to Krishna, and in that way achieve the highest perfection of life. So Maharaj Parikshit, he's the hearer of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Shukadeva Goswami is the speaker. And we can see Maharaj Parikshit's great character actually in hearing all of these pastimes of the Lord, because he's asking such expert questions in order to hear all of this. And he was given 7 days to live because he was cursed by a Brahmana boy, that he would be killed in 7 days by a snake bird. So he didn't just say, okay, like there's many movies in modern day where people they have a certain amount of days to live or whatever, and if we see these movies, it's the exact opposite of what Maharaj Parikshit does. They just try and enjoy their senses. But Maharaj Parikshit, he says, okay, I have 7 days to live, so he goes down, he gives up his entire kingdom, all of his wealth and everything, and just goes down to the bank of the Ganges, all of his comfort, and he goes down to the bank of the river and just fasts until death, and hears in the association of saintly persons. And he hears from Shukadeva Goswami, the most qualified, and he asks him these many expert questions. So we could see, even since he's a devotee of the Lord and he has his great facilities, his palace and everything involved with that, he could have just told his family members, I'm going to die in 7 days, so I'll just be in the room over there. Whatever process was going on at the time, whether it was the deity worship or the chanting, or he could have said, I'll be in the room with the deities for the next 7 days, and I'll just be chanting and tell the kids to leave me alone. And then he's good to go. But actually, he takes on this great task, giving up everything and going and fasting on the bank of the river, not for his own aggrandizement or for his own upliftment, but actually for the betterment of all beings everywhere. And this is the position of an acharya or of a pure devotee of the Lord. They're actually distressed by others' distress, and they want to see the highest welfare for all others. So instead of just doing what was best for him, which he could have done so many things, he's so qualified and has so much facility. Instead, he goes and does what is best for everyone else. And many of the questions he's asking, when we read the purports, we see with many of the questions, he already knew the answer, or he already understood, but he's asking it for the benefit of all other living beings, like ourselves in the future, who would be hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. So due to the actions of pure devotees like Maharaj Parikshit, we all actually benefit, and we can see a great example of that just by being able to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And by the process of hearing, Maharaj Parikshit attained the highest perfection in going back to Godhead, where we serve Krishna eternally without interruption. And by chanting Kirtanam, Shukadev Goswami achieved the highest perfection. So we can see in all of these different pure devotees of the Lord, the different ways in which they achieve the goal of life, Krishna Prema, love of Godhead. Are there any comments or questions? The 5th verse? Okay, thank you. Pashavo dudrivorbita vajam santyajya gokulam Krishna Krishna te sarve govindam sharanam yayur. Translation. The domestic animals fled the pasture in fear, O king, and all the inhabitants rushed to Lord Govinda for shelter, crying, Krishna, Krishna. So this is the position of a pure devotee. Even though there's so much to fear in this situation, Aristasura is gigantic. His roaring and all the sounds that he makes, they shake everything. They're so frightening. But even in this great fear, the Lord's devotees who are in Vrindavan as these domestic animals here, they don't run anywhere else. They're not trying to protect themselves. They're actually running to Lord Govinda for shelter and crying, Krishna, Krishna. And they're not just casually doing it or just, oh, Krishna, please help. But they're fully surrendered to Krishna. They are fully in love with Krishna. So they're truly and sincerely calling out and crying for Krishna's protection. And so that is the position that we should always have, because we're actually powerless to do anything on our own. It's only by Krishna's grace that we can do anything. So we always need the mercy of Guru, and we always need the mercy of Krishna. So like that, we have to truly pray to Krishna and truly take shelter of Krishna. And then we will actually be able to do whatever services we're given. That's also the position of a devotee. It's not that they get a service from their guru and think, oh, this is perfect because I'm so strong and intelligent and perfectly able to do this service, it'll be a breeze. No, they don't think like that. They don't think it's their own qualification, but they actually are sincerely praying to their guru, and they're sincerely praying to Krishna for they're praying that I'm totally unqualified. I have no good qualities, but please somehow or other engage me in your service, Lord Sri Krishna. And they're always praying sincerely to be engaged in Krishna's service. And I was hearing recently from His Holiness Amala Bhakta Swami, and he was explaining that we should always have this mood to fully depending on Krishna and taking shelter of Krishna. And it's not that we are crying out like this in every moment. We take care of the things that we are able to do. He said, he gave the example, if he's walking across the street, he doesn't call out to the other devotees, Prabhu, here, please just take me under the arm and take me across the street. But he said, no, I can cross the street. So for the things that we're able to do, then we do those to the best of our ability, and for everything else, we're praying very sincerely to the Lord and asking Him to please help us, because we're totally unqualified to do so on our own. Are there any comments or questions on this verse?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
To see Sankirtan devotees traveling Sankirtan is the best part of life in Krishna conscious one of happy devotees. Hare Krishna. Seeing you happy, I'm being happy. Hare
Krishna.
Yeah. So Krishna consciousness, consciousness is in three stages. Like one is in awake stage, one is sleep stage, and deep stage, deep sleep. And above that is transcendental. So one is an awakened stage. Consciousness is in three stages: sleep stage and deep sleep stage. Our consciousness are in three stages. And Krishna consciousness is transcendental, above that. Above the three stages.
Krishna consciousness transcends out.
Yes.
Yeah. I see.
So that's nice. King Kulakshetra. King Kulakshetra. You remember? He's praying that I am now young, so I can chant your name. At the time of death, my voice will choke up. I cannot remember you. I cannot chant your holy name. You came across the verse? It's a nice prayer. King Kulakshetra.
Yes.
Okay. So, very nice. So these pastimes, they are performed in Vrindavan. So, in the spiritual world also, these pastimes are performed, right? So, what's the difference on the spiritual platform, on this earthly platform? Is the same or it's totally different? Like, you have any guess?
I've heard it explained that Vrindavan and also Mayapur Dham, they're non-different from the spiritual world. Like it's like the spiritual world situated here. Is that sufficient?
Correct? He performed many pastimes, killing of the asuras with the coward boys, different pastimes. So same thing in the spiritual world is different or the same thing? Like?
Well, I've also heard that the demons, they're not there in the spiritual world. So when Krishna comes to perform these pastimes, also all of his associates, weapons, devotees, paraphernalia, all these things are coming with him. So when everything is there in Krishna. There's nothing that we can find or experience in this material world that isn't coming from Krishna. Everything here is a reflection, a perverted reflection of his qualities and of the spiritual world. So Krishna, he also likes a good fight, and when he wants to engage in this type of activity, then he has his devotees come down to the material world and assume the form of these big demons, like his devotees in Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay. Krishna arranged this whole thing to where they made some small offense to the great saintly devotees, the four kumaras, and thus the kumaras cursed Jai and Vijay, and Jai and Vijay fell down to this material world and became Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And then Krishna took on this pastime of annihilating them very easily in his form of Vrahadev versus Hiranyaksha and Nrsimhadev against Hiranyakashipu. So the demons, they're not there in the spiritual world. Everyone is blissfully engaged in loving devotional service to Krishna. But when he wants a good fight, then he has his devotees take on these types of forms and has these fights in the material world, kind of like a play, like actors on a stage. Yes, Prabhu?
Yeah, it was a very nice explanation about Prabhu's questions. And what I was thinking, that your question is related to, you say, spiritual sky or spiritual platform. Is it? So spiritual platform means that, spiritual world. There are also a lot of varieties, a lot of different realms of spiritual world. So you mean to say in Vaikuntha or in the Golok Vrindavan? There are two questions coming again. So, yeah, of course, in Vaikuntha and Golok Vrindavan, there is no effect of time factor, no enviness, no, So all these things, they are in pure mode of goodness. That is Visuddha Sattva. So, and you explained very nicely that now, of course, then that poor Kumar, they are getting astonished where these two impostors came here. And how could they have all this check of, qualities? Like they are wondering. So they didn't know how to respect the saintly persons, like we are visiting to see Krishna, So like that, there is a total absence of all these bad qualities, whatever you say. So, the pastimes in Golok Vrindavan is different, like Krishna is tending cows, Suravi cows, and every devotees, associates, they are very busy how to render service to Supreme Person of Godhead. And that is what is happening, these pastimes here, that is only in a particular universe, like killing demons, like Aristasura and all these. Several planets are there, several unlimited planets. You cannot count. So same thing, this Bhagavatam class is going on in every planet also. So pastime is going on in so many universes, not in, that is, this type of pastime is not happening in Vaikuntha, either in Vaikuntha or in Golok Vrindavan. It's not like that. So I was just studying. And also one more question is coming. Gopis, and cows, they were so frightened. Then even they heard by just hearing the reverberating sounds of in the Aristasura. So they had miscarriage. Okay? My question is, how can you explain that? No, although you said everybody used to take shelter of Krishna. They had already taken shelter of Krishna. So there is no question of, suppose when they are fully surrendered to Krishna. So just out of curiosity to make a discussion on this topic. How could they have, they got so much scared, they got so much frightened, although they are under the shelter of Krishna. You want to say, so that means so they had also miscarriage. So how can you explain?
So one thing about all of these residents of Vrindavan, Krishna is fulfilling the desires of all living entities, but also especially the ones who are taking shelter of him, like his devotees especially. So these devotees, they have a desire to serve Krishna in the most intimate way. So to be in these sort of relationships with Krishna, like the gopis or like his parents, Krishna's yoga maya, he expands his yoga maya to make them think of him in these different moods and relationships. So, like I was just reading recently, after Krishna killed King Kamsa, his parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, when Krishna and Balaram came up to them and touched their feet and paid obeisances, at first, Vasudeva and Devaki, they just stood there. They didn't pick them up to hug them or anything, because they were thinking this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't know what I would even do if I saw Krishna. So like this, they were very astounded. So then Krishna, because he knew it would get in the way of their extreme level of love for him in this parental mood, he expanded his yoga maya, and it explains in the Bhagavatam that he began speaking to them in a way that they, again, saw him as their dear son. And then like that, they could relate with him in that mood again and serve him in that mood. So like this, while Krishna is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and these devotees, they do have a much higher regard and love for the Lord than we could even imagine. At the same time, due to Krishna's yoga maya, they're illusioned in a different way. Not like the living entities are here by Mahamaya, but they're illusioned in a different way where they're seeing him as either their dear lover or their dear son or friend. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. Even though I only heard maybe like 30 seconds. So forgive me for that. What's your name, Prabhu?
Rishi Kumar Das.
Oh, say that again.
Rishi Kumar Das.
Hare Krishna. Nice to meet you. Thank you for blessing us with your presence in Chicago. It's always inspiring to see young devotees take to Krishna consciousness voluntarily. You may have your miseries in life, but I'm always inspired by devotees with all the temptation in this world who take to it at such a young age voluntarily. You made a lot of profound points, but obviously I wasn't here for them. But the one thing that resonated, but before I basically make my point, did you guys come today or yesterday?
We just got here last night.
Last night? Okay, so, well, when new devotees come in, I kind of like to, introduce them to all the devotees, but the most senior devotees. The most senior devotee here this is Jitendra Prabhu. He's a Prabhupada disciple. He was initiated by Prabhupada in 1975, and he's been in this community for the last 45 years plus. He's a maintenance person. He's a handyman, and he saved the temple probably thousands of dollars, over the years. So I just wanted to introduce you to him, and his name is Jitendra Prabhu. So.
Jai. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Jai. The last point I heard you were making when I came is, if I want to contribute something, you said try your best, if we try our best. And we see so many pastimes like my motto, we see so many pastimes where it basically says, here's my motto, and there's many pastimes illustrating this, that basically if we try our best, then God will help us. If we try to be the best, then God will humble us. And we see that Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to offer prayers to the Lord, but he says, I'm only 5 years old, what do I know? So the Lord said, try your best. And what did the Lord do? He took his conch shell. He touched the conch shell to the head of Dhruva Maharaj and inspired him with so much wisdom that he began to speak eloquent prayers to the Lord. Why? Because he tried his best, and the Lord inspired him. On the flip side of the coin, I'm not sure if you know the story of Keshava Kashmiri, where he was inspired by Mother Saraswati to defeat anyone in debate. And so he came across Lord Chaitanya, who was a 16-year-old boy at the time. He didn't know he was the Supreme Lord, and he tried to defeat the Lord. And when he tried to defeat the Lord, the Lord turned off his internet connection, not internet. Therefore, he was speechless when. So this is the lesson where we see that if we try our best, then God will humble us. So my question is regarding specifically the limb of devotional service of kirtan, speaking about the Lord, preaching about the Lord, because we hear in the Bhagavatam that kind of any limb of devotional service kind of equals to the other. But maybe I kind of want to focus on speaking about the Lord because the tendency is that devotees have their nature, and some devotees' nature is introverted. And they don't like to speak about Krishna because they're not as eloquent as other devotees. So they're not going to really try to do that, But one thing I've learned over the years is that, devotees may say, I'm not eloquent enough, I'm not pure enough, nor am I knowledgeable enough. So therefore, I don't really speak about Krishna. But I will argue I can speak for my own self that when somebody criticizes me or when I want to find fault with somebody, I'm very eloquent enough. I'm pure enough, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to know who's right and who's wrong. I'm normally right. And so we can see that in devotee relationships. So I will argue, what are some steps we could give up the excuse to not really try our best, especially in speaking Krishna Katha, because like I said, the tendency is that when we want to find fault with others, we're Buddha, we're completely enlightened. We know everyone's faults. So maybe you could speak about that, extract something out of that, whole thing. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
I feel like you're describing me accurately with the last part of the example. Would Jitendra Prabhu maybe like to answer this one?
It was spaced out, I'm sorry. Whenever he speaks, he's like, real loud, and it's kind of annoying. So,
Well, sorry, what was the question? I just forgot it for a second.
How can we try our best specifically in taking the opportunity to speak Krishna Katha and not make excuses for ourselves that I'm not eloquent enough, not pure enough, but we're eloquent enough on the other side when we want to find fault?
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking when you were mentioning that this wonderful devotee named Prasad Prabhu from India, actually his name is Krishna Chaitanya Swami, but he's so humble that he came to the temple in Kansas City pretty much like if you've seen the show Undercover Boss. He came like disguised, you could say, as just brahmachari, and he kind of associated with all of us in that way. And in this way, I got to see his great humility, even though he has disciples and all these amazing projects and things, and he speaks so eloquently and all these things. Still, the other brahmacharis would sometimes like boss him around or like say these things to him where I'm like, oh my God. But he just would very humbly and like jokingly still relate with them. So associating with other devotees is always really helpful for seeing these appropriate like behaviors and qualities and things. But one thing he told me is that whenever anyone asks you to give class or chant kirtan or any of these things, immediately take up that opportunity. He said it's like your opportunity to serve Krishna, and Krishna wants you to do this. So I just tried to follow his instruction on that. I found that really helpful, hearing that from him. Because sometimes we do think, okay, I'm not qualified, which I'm not, and all these other things. But hearing that advice from him was really helpful because now I see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to render some small service. Are there any last comments or questions? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. No, but I was here. He's not there now. I just want to talk about it. Yeah, classes are every day. Maharaj doesn't give the classes now. He's mostly in his office. Well, except he'll come out for Harinam. But during the classes, he'll just give comments over the speaker system. Oh, wow. God.
Yeah, he had some difficulties recently. So he's mostly in his office now.
Finish what, Prabhu?
I will tell.
Nice to see you.
It's really